Well, hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome to the 6th episode of The Hive of Season 1, a podcast that promises to get you buzzing about challenging business stories and the future of humans in a world obsessed with artificial intelligence. I'm your host, PJ Sherman, founder and director of Black Bee Group and Skilled Up UK CIC. Black Bee optimizes your LinkedIn and website to turn eyeballs into leads, which is quite interesting considering the topic of conversation we're going to be doing today. More mentions of eyeballs later from Ben. And Skilled Up is a social enterprise that is leading the battle against the UK's skills gap crisis. Joining me today is Ben Reynolds, Director of Sales and Marketing at EyeMed UK, a leading managed vision care company who work with employers who want to be compliant with DSE regulation, as well as take great care of their employees' vision and overall health. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we were just everyone listening and watching, we were talking before we pressed record about the amazing work that Ben and EyeMed are doing. So we're going to definitely look into that in a bit more detail. But what I really want to start with is because Ben and I first met, what was it, about 10 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
long
Ben
time ago, before grey hair.
Like I said, you've still got Peter Pan syndrome. You haven't aged. So, just talk to me, because you're in IT at the time. I think it'd be a great starting point to see your journey and how you went into IT and how you've now transitioned into sort of eye care and the medical side of things.
Definitely. Let me give you a kind of plotted overview and avoid some of the kind of more boring periods of that kind of transition, I guess. So, as you said, we met 10 odd years ago when I was a director of an IT company and absolutely loved what I did, absolutely loved the people who I worked with. And we got to a point where we had kind of exceeded business plan expectations. We were working with some massive employers locally. We were starting to really build a name for ourselves, which was fantastic. And my role from day one, having come into that, was let's kind of get the momentum building. Let's make sure that people are aware of who we are and what we do and the difference we make in the market. And we had our own kind of USPs. And the IT industry was always one where you kind of stuck with who you knew and what you were doing, because why would you change it if it was working? And we wanted to change that, because actually there's always better ways of working. There's ways of streamlining. There's ways of moving away from I'm stuck in a contract for 1, 2, 3 years. And if we could offer great service at a great price without the lengthy contracts, why wouldn't people move over to us? And thankfully, kind of our business USP backed up what was happening in reality.
Yeah.
So I was part of that company, and that company is still doing amazing things now. They really carry a fantastic reputation. I'm still in touch with my ex-business partner, who I know is doing brilliant things and really kind of raising the bar within the entire industry, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But my role almost became redundant from the point of view that we needed bums on seats. We needed people getting out there and shouting about what we were doing. And I'd kind of ticked the box in terms of what I wanted to achieve, which was get the company from zero to something really special in a couple of years. So I then moved back in as kind of mortgage responsibilities and things like that happened. It was a move back into the employed world, worked within the ed tech industry for a couple of years, heading up the business development side of things there. Loved what I did, thought we were making a difference to students, helping universities get out there and kind of promote the great things they were doing and attract more students.
Yeah.
And then had an opportunity to move into, I guess, something which has always been a passion of mine, which is the wellbeing space. And work for a fantastic company who are doing amazing things and really influencing people thinking about well-being more than what they had done historically.
Yeah.
And for me, well-being has always been something which we need to make kind of the center of our own universe, because it's our well-being. If we're on the form, we're able to help everyone else around us. So for me, it's always been something I've been really kind of passionate about for a number of years, not just from a physical health. I don't necessarily look like it, but I enjoy spending time in the gym, trying to lift heavy weights and trying to figure out how to use the machines and the equipment there. But actually from a mental health point of view as well, if we can take this kind of holistic approach to it, mental, physical, and all the wider arenas of well-being, it's a great thing to invest in yourself, as we've just spoken about. What is a better investment than investing in your health and your well-being, and which then allows you to help other people do the same and help them through trials and tribulations of life. And if you're on the form, then you can help other people. So really passionate about the well-being side of things. Was doing great things at this company, and then got approached by an external recruiter, which is, I guess, kind of more into your world, PJ. But they approached me on LinkedIn and said, "We're working for this fantastic company. They're doing great things. Would you be interested in having a chat?" And at the time, I thought, well, you know what? I'm enjoying where I am. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm enjoying talking about things which I'm passionate about. And I think in sales, if you're genuinely passionate about it, you're not selling. You're simply communicating something you believe in yourself. But there was a way about this approach that I thought, actually, this is worth having a look at. So I spoke to the recruiter and got on well with them. It helped that they were a nice person. And it wasn't a hard sell by any means, which is ironic for the director sales role. But the company EyeMed UK was something which appealed to me. You can see that I wear glasses. I've seen the benefit in myself from wearing glasses, not just in terms of productivity, but actually I feel more confident because I'm not squinting at people when I'm wearing glasses. I feel more comfortable in my work because I'm not having to type and then retype, so I've made a spelling mistake. So I was already intrigued in that world. It's very closely linked to the well-being side of things. But I'll be honest, the thing which sold it for me was I had interviews around kind of December, January time. And it was a couple of years ago when we had a lot of snow. And I came onto a call similar to what we're doing now, PJ, and I was met with my current MD, Lynn Hodges, and Lynn came on camera and said, "Ben, I have to apologise. It's a little bit unusual, but I visited my daughter over the weekend and I'm actually snowed in. So I'm not in the office where I would normally do these interviews." And she said, "I'm really sorry, but I've got my granddaughter with me." And her granddaughter was on her knee throughout the entire interview.
I love that.
Post-it notes over her face. And
that would sell it to me then, actually.
It's
so human.
There and then. And it didn't, not that it didn't matter what the role was or what the company did, but for me to be able to converse with someone at an MD level who was human and had the kind of the day-to-day challenges which we have. I've got 2 young daughters myself. I know what it's like when you're on a call and suddenly they burst in to tell you about an imaginary friend or something like that. So that absolutely sold me, because I was speaking to a real human who had a life away from work, had similar kind of things I have with young daughters, or in Lynn's case, young granddaughters. And it just sold of me. And it helped massively that Lynn and my colleague Alok, who I met in the first stage, and then my colleague Hector in the second stage, were just nice people, wanted to go on and do great things. And we chatted before we hit the go live button about, and we come on to some more detail. For me, it was having an interest in well-being and health and well-being and how we kind of optimize ourselves as people. An eye test isn't just about whether you need glasses. It's not just about whether or not, if you wear glasses, whether they're still the right prescription for you and still are helping you in day-to-day life. It's how do we look at the rest of the body through the eyes. And again, I'm going to word it in the same way, PJ. I feel so corny when I say it, and I shudder a little bit, but the eyes are the window to the rest of the body. So if we can go through a simple 20-minute eye test, 25-minute eye test, and we can pick up on eye health, and that's, you mentioned about kind of eyeballs. If we can pick up on the actual health of the eyeballs, is there anything we need to kind of have a second look at? But actually, if we go behind the eyes, let's have an option to look at diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, some tumours, mental health. It really gives us this kind of overview about what's going on in the body. And of course, if we can pick up on things before they show any physical symptoms, the earlier that someone can get something started in terms of a treatment plan. So that's really important. So for me, and I've used a lot of words to answer your question, but that kind of brought me to where I am today, is a love of everything health and well-being, someone who wears glasses, believes in glasses, but actually it doesn't really matter whether I did or didn't wear glasses, because it's still linked to getting the best out of people. Because if people are feeling good and they're at their kind of prime in terms of their health and well-being, they go on and do fantastic things. So it kind of ticked every single box for me. Something I was genuinely interested in, a fantastic MD and someone who was a human outside of work and in work, obviously, and a fantastic and supportive team and a growing company. So that's kind of where I am today.
Yep.
which was probably a lot longer answer than what you thought. So apologies.
No, Ben, that's great. No, I appreciate it. And it's kind of like the answer I got last week or the last episode with V. And I love these, what you call long answers, but it's infused with passion, and that really comes across, because usually when you ask an open question and you hope for a decent answer, and some people you'll get a short answer, but for people who've got genuine passion, the whole story comes out, which is amazing. And it's so important to work with someone who demonstrates that they're a human, especially as a father as well, because I suppose that's one thing that you'll need to consider as well when working somewhere is, what are they like with the kids bursting in at some point? Because I know a lot of people who, and usually they don't have kids themselves, take a negative view of it. So that speaks volumes. But the next part, I really want to look at sort of the challenges that you're facing. But to give a bit of a story from my side, I think what you mentioned there about the positive correlation between your health, your mental well-being, and also productivity at work, that sold it for me anyway. But I think for me as well, I think I transitioned from that mindset of, in my 20s, you get an eye test because you just want your eyes might be a bit blurry or something. It's just to get glasses because you've got poor eyesight. When in fact, I've known a few people, and like I was saying before, read a few things online where they've gone for an eye test, and they're healthy people on the face of it, but have uncovered some really insidious condition, whether that's pre-diabetes, a tumor, and of course I don't want to steal your thunder on this, but like raised blood pressure, and they may not know about it, but at least having this MOT, so to speak, on the eyes, pre-warns them, and they can take that preventative measure rather than reactive. So
exactly that, and it's the key word there is that preventative measure.
Yeah.
Now, we kind of look at the commercial side, the business side of things. So I talk a lot about DSC legislation, which dictates that if an employee asks for an eye test and they're using a screen of any kind, you need to provide one for them, and contribute towards the glasses as well. But what we try and do as a company is absolutely help employers tick that box. And this isn't a nice to have. This is a business critical legislative piece. You have to abide by the DSC legislation. Of course you do. But if we move on to more of the human element, so many studies have shown that actually if you have an employee who has either needs glasses and has that corrective measure put in place, or ensures that they have the right prescription, for example, or just has that check so they confirm one way or another, productivity levels go up. Now, it won't be a surprise to anyone that if you need glasses and you're not wearing glasses, you have physical impact on your body. You have headaches, you have migraines.
Yeah.
The kind of next story on from that is people have more time away from work.
Yep.
And that can be either just a day or two, so they've had a headache, or it could be a week through to a migraine, or it could be a much longer kind of time off. So all of this is this kind of proactive approach to it, and it's about not waiting for something to happen. How can we make sure that we're there before something happens? And exactly right, PJ, you go to have an eye test, they spend time looking at the eyeball, at the back of the eyeball, but it's also a deeper look as well. So what can we do about making sure that people are doing this regularly? Now, that the kind of prescribed idea is every 2 years, but actually if an optometrist says it needs to be sooner than that or more regular than that, that's really important you take that guidance. But wouldn't it be great if we built this into every generation as a regular life event they do at least every 2 years? And we were talking earlier that I'm guilty, as I hope a lot of parents are, of occasionally putting your kids in front of a screen, whether it's your phone, an iPad, or even a TV, just so they're distracted for 10 minutes or half an hour at a time whilst you're getting on doing something. The problem is that that's been happening for a while now, and we're getting increases, and there's again various studies. So at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to have a generation where myopia, short-sightedness is a real problem for people. And we have a lot of people who require some kind of corrective vision care. And that's because it's become a normal walk of life that people spend a lot of their time looking at their phones. I know that I'm really disappointed pretty much every evening when I get an alert on my phone which says your screen time's up today. And
Yep.
it's because it's right. It's because it's a part of our day-to-day life. But if you're looking at a screen and you need glasses, but you're not wearing glasses, if we boil it right down to the basics, it's straining your eyes.
Hmm.
And that can only go on for so long until something else starts to happen. Again, whether
Yeah.
that's headaches, migraines, um, or just fatigued eyes. It can be as simple as that. So what do we do proactively to make sure that people are getting their eyes tested? Not only just to tick this box from an employer or employee point of view, yes, you're DSC compliant, but actually it's more about the human side of things. Go out, get your eyes tested every 2 years, at least every 2 years, because actually it can pick up on something sooner than any physical symptoms appear. And the sooner someone can get something looked at, the quicker their treatment plan or the better their treatment plan. And again, taking it back to the business side of things, if you've got an employee who, God forbid, the worst is discovered, the sooner they can get something sorted, of course, then hopefully the sooner they'll be back to work as well and back to being productive. So there's
Yeah.
whichever way you look at it, it's a hard argument to say I don't need my eyes tested at any age.
Absolutely. The only thing I don't like about it is when you stick your eye in the machine and it flashes really brightly, and
Yes,
then you can see your
or
eye
there's
for
that
about a minute. Yeah.
that puff of air. And do you know what,
Yeah.
this is actually something we talk about because, and I can't give you the exact figures, but there's a number of people who are actually really concerned about going for an eye test because they've heard these horror stories that you have to put your chin right up against this machine. They blow this whirlwind and this air into your eyes. It really, really hurts. You've got pink eyes afterwards. It's just horrible. You've got someone this close away from you looking in your eyes. Actually, the reality is, it's. I wouldn't say it's something which you would do because you desperately want one done because you enjoy the process, but it's not bad. I actually had an eye test yesterday, and it's a different kind of eye test. I wanted to understand the kind of process you go through with a specific machine,
Yeah.
but you've got someone who's an expert at what they do. They can talk to you about what they're doing, why they're doing, what they're looking out for, and it's
Yeah.
really interesting. And it's really great to see the technological advancements over the years in terms of what the bits of equipment do now, how they do it and what they're looking for, which we didn't have 10, 20, 30 years ago. So even if you just want to go ahead and just see what the difference is, see that it's not this horrible experience which is going to last all day and you're going to have people prodding fingers in your eyes. Actually, it's a really simple thing.
Yeah.
You go in, you can have a standing test, you can read letters 2 meters away. How low does the kind of words go before the letters go before they start getting blurry?
Yeah.
Have a look at the back of your eye. It's a really simple process and it doesn't need to be a horrible process, and it isn't a horrible process.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of anxiety off as well, especially where if you've got blurry eyes sometimes, or you do suffer with migraines like I do, and then they go, actually, you might have a little bit of a prescription, but otherwise, your eyesight's fine and you're healthy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, whew, that's nice. You don't get the white coat syndrome. Then it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I want to look at is challenges in the industry at the moment. So I'd say because we spoke there about making it as I don't know, like as part of what we do on a 6-monthly annual basis, like going to the doctors for a checkup, taking your car for a service, MOT, these standard things. What have you found is the biggest challenge in convincing businesses and also the end users?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the overall kind of aim should be, if you're involved in the vision care market, should be to get as many people as possible to have their eyes tested as regularly as possible because of the reasons we've just spoken about, not only because
Yeah.
it's business compliance, but also for the wider health side of things. So when we look at the end user, the challenges, and again, we've spoken about it in detail already, is particularly younger people who don't feel that they need an eye test.
Yeah.
Now, when I go and pick my daughters up from school, there's a proportion of kids who are wearing glasses because either they've communicated to their parents that things are a bit blurry, their parents have picked up something, or healthcare professionals picked up on something.
Yeah.
But again, there's various studies which are showing that there's a proportion, it might only be a small proportion, but a portion of kids who are sometimes deemed as disengaged at school, for example, because they're not seen to be concentrating on what's happening back in Mayday, it was back on the blackboard, but more kind of locally. It's like whether it's a digital screen, whatever. But they seem disengaged. But actually, it's not because they don't want to be there or they're not interested in whatever the teacher's talking about. It's because they physically can't focus on what's in front of them. But they don't necessarily know that's not the norm. So they become disengaged. So that's something which is really something we want to be kind of changing, is getting people, regardless of what age they're at, to be thinking about eyes, to be making sure that they're having their eyes tested. And again, if you've got kids who spend their time on phones, bring them off it, get them to do something else. There's that kind of the rule where you spend 20 minutes looking at a screen and then 20 seconds looking away in the distance, that kind of thing. But things which aren't just up and close the whole time, up like this. So that's the first challenge, is getting everyone to be thinking about their eyes, regardless of what age they are. From a business point of view, one of the challenges we have is it's that kind of business safety sentence, which is also probably one of the most dangerous sentences, is we've always done it this way.
Oh yeah, hate that phrase.
And I think that's not unique to the vision industry. That's in any industry. What if you're a salesperson and you're trying to sell vision care, or you're trying to sell like a water cooler thing, whatever it is, or you're trying to sell pens into a company.
Yeah.
Companies have tried and tested processes which they're happy with and they stick with. So one of our challenges is actually, let's kind of look at other ways of working, which might be more streamlined for you. So when I've gone through various companies, if you need an eye test, you ask for an eye test, they say, no problem at all, go out and have your eyes tested. And if you need glasses, no problem, put your expenses claim in and we'll pay it in a month.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That works. That's ticking the box. I would challenge whether or not that's the most suitable and the most effective user journey for both sides of an employer and an employee there. And so much I talk to employees about a lot is, if we break that process down, you've got an employee who thinks they might need glasses or aware they haven't had an eye test for a while. They go and speak to their team leader and say, what do we do? How do I go and get an eye test? They then get told to go and have an eye test. They pay for the eye test out of their own money. They might pay for glasses out of their own money. They then have to bring back an expenses claim, which then goes to finance, and they reconcile against a receipt and the cost. Goes to HR, typically HR, who record who's had an eye test and when they've had it. So actually, if you look at the whole process, it's quite complicated. There's a lot of people involved, and it's quite time consuming as well.
Yeah.
Now, what we do, and this isn't a sales pitch, is we kind of say, let's look at that process and let's see where we can simplify it. And as an employer, you still got to make some final financial outlay to pay for the employee's cost of their eye test and their glasses. Rather than the employee paying for it in order to make the employer compliant, why doesn't the employer use a voucher system, which is what we do? So the employee can buy the vouchers, they simply give it to their employee digitally, so there's no physical vouchers which they might lose or tear, whatever. They take their phone to the optician, gives them an eye test and glasses if they need it. Really smooth process. From an employer's point of view, yes, there's that financial commitment, but it's at the start of the process. So it's done and dusted. They can control costs, they can manage costs. But there's a big thing recently, and it's always been there, but perhaps become more in the spotlight since the pandemic, about working poverty, where you have an individual who is employed. On paper, they're earning a decent wage, but actually, because of the cost of living and other factors, they really are kind of on the breadline, and they might have to make a choice between having a 25, 35, 50 pound eye test and potentially £150 set of glasses in order to do their job. So they're productive at their job. But they might, and this is an extreme case, PJ, but they might have to choose between, let's say that's a £200 cost in total, paying that £200 and getting it paid back by their employer after expenses in a month's time, or putting food on the table for their family. Now that's an easy decision to make. Of course, you're going to feed your family and make sure they're okay, and you can afford to pay your mortgage or your rent, whatever it is. But it's another month when you're not having corrective eye measures put in place. It's another month when you're potentially straining your eyes further, when you're potentially having more headaches, more migraines, more time off work. So all we're saying is, take that cost an employer has to make anyway as a reimbursement of expenses, So essentially saying, let's take that cost to the employer from the end of the process to the start of the process. And actually, it's easy to control as well, because you might have an employee who puts in an expenses claim for £50 or £250, for example. So it helps manage that cost. It gives you the tick in the box from DSC compliance. And if you've got an HR manager who's kind of looking after vision care as a side of desk policy, they're probably using a spreadsheet. They're kind of ticking on there. It's not the most user-friendly way. So let's provide the back office system as well for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe turn into a bit of a sales pitch at the end, but essentially it's about removing barriers to good vision care. And how do we do that? How do we make sure that people are going out, getting their eyes tested regularly, and employers are still able to look after their employee population?
Yeah, and I'm fully on board with it, because part of what we're doing at Skilled Up is that social mobility, removing barriers, but also coaching businesses and hiring managers on the unconscious bias.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've got this idea of, well, why can't you go out and spend £50 on an eye test? We'll pay it back. But it's like you mentioned, there may be a real strong life-changing choice there for that month, where that £50 is better suited somewhere else. And then, like you said, you're just kicking the can down the road,
Yeah.
which ultimately, where's that going to lead? Potential like drop in productivity, overall well-being. So, yeah, and I suppose it's also that social anxiety of having that conversation as well, because not everybody wants to talk about their personal finances with people on their team. You know, going to the manager and saying, "Oh, I'm struggling, so I can't afford to pay that," and then repay it. So it's kind of taking all that anxiety out of the situation as well.
It's exactly that, and it would be unrealistic to expect an employer to know the financial position of all of their employees. It's just impossible to do that. But to your point, a lot of the time, people don't want to talk to their colleagues about the financial position at home, and it's no one else's business. Of course, there's fantastic employers, responsible employers out there who do so much in terms of financial well-being, and that's amazing to see, and that should always be an essential part of an overall HR strategy.
Yeah.
But it is a reality for a lot of people that on a daily basis, they need to make a financial decision. And with any decision, there's a positive outcome for one party and a negative negative outcome for another party. And with this, it is as simple as, of course, an eye test and glasses, if you need them, is going to be down on the pecking order for a lot of people if it's a choice between that and paying mortgage, rent, or putting food on the table.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult one for employers to look at it and say, well, we know that we pay a decent wage, fantastic, but actually you don't know what other financial commitments every employee's got. So how can we help them out? It's as simple as moving the payment side from the end of the process to the start of the process. At the highest level, that's all it is.
Yeah. So it's focusing on the outcome for that employee person, rather than
taking any cost from the employee out of the equation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Well, I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you. EyeMed are doing some awesome things. So I would definitely recommend getting in touch if your company wants to put this into place as an initiative throughout the business. It's super useful, and I'm a big believer in it. So thanks for that. What I want to look at next is the one that always gives people a bit of a shiver, the AI side. Trust me, I haven't had any AI experts on the podcast yet, Ben, so don't worry. Just a general chat. But I was keen to, and this is something I always ask guest speakers, is first off, just give me your sort of perspective on the overall narrative around AI at the moment, because some people are either for it, some people are totally against it, and then what we'll do is sort of cover it in your industry and what you find of the future for it. But what are your thoughts on AI?
So my personal thoughts, and I chat about AI quite regularly, both I guess kind of socially and within the business world as well. And for me, I'm excited by it. I think just the advancements we've seen in the last 1 to, I guess, 3 or 5 years has been fantastic. And there's some really impressive things happening.
Yeah.
And from what I can see, a lot of it, if not all of it, is there to try and do good in the world and make something better.
Yeah.
Where I get slightly nervous is at what point do we put the controls in place? So we've got some fantastic AI which can do brilliant things, and we'll talk about kind of the vision care side of things in a minute. But it's at what point do we stop and say, that's done, that's met its need, before you go too far? And again, like, I mean, there's films about it, like iRobot and things like that. So
Yeah.
how far are we away from that being a reality? And the answer probably isn't that far away. If I can kind of segue into the conversation around the vision care side of things, even yesterday when I had this this kind of specialist eye test done, I was chatting to the optometrist saying, look, what are your thoughts on AI? Where do you see it kind of evolving? How do you see it helping in your role?
Yeah.
And they said, Ben, I think it's going to be really, really useful. And now AI is used for kind of assessing insurance claims for eye care. It can, in some cases, be used within eye tests itself. There was actually a study, I think, last year, and AI was actually more accurate at picking up specific tests around diabetes than what an optom was.
Wow.
And that's great. I mean, it's one very specific kind of element of it. And the kind of general consensus and my feeling is that AI is something which can absolutely add benefit, whether that's just a saving time and taking a specific role away, not away from a person, but supporting that person in doing their role.
Yeah.
It's got some great medical advancements, not only within the eye test world of things, but across the board in the health world. It's doing amazing things. I don't think it will ever completely remove, and I hope it never completely removes, a human being from the eye test world. And let's use an imaginary person. Joe Bloggs goes and has an eye test. They're feeling absolutely fine. The eye test discovers something. Now, AI might help in the discovery of whatever it is, but what we can't get to a point is where AI is communicating that there's a problem with an individual.
No.
Because even the optometrist yesterday was saying, if there's a problem, I can base how I talk about that problem, how I present that problem, based just on a 15-minute conversation up until that point. So I know roughly the kind of person who I'm speaking to, whether there's someone who's going to want me to be really almost gentle and a little bit fluffy about a diagnosis, or whether they're going to want it kind of really just to the point. AI can't replace that. So it's that human element, which I think is so, so important across the healthcare industry. It's how do we deliver that message? How do we answer questions in a emotionally intelligent way, in an empathetic way, in a sympathetic way? AI, I imagine, will be able to do that, but I hope it doesn't, because I think it's there as a supporting tool rather than the main instrument which is used in communication about a healthcare issue.
It's interesting you say that, because I was speaking to a few other guest speakers about the benefits of AI moving forward. And last week, V and I were talking about the creative industry and how, okay, AI can mimic, replicate, create some amazing art, but it doesn't have those lived, learned experiences that artists have, which is the whole point of art. It's that storytelling, that expressionism. But it's interesting the healthcare side, where actually it supports the argument as well that it'll develop soft skills, especially around that empathy, which robots are never going to be able to do.
They won't be able to, and it's exactly that point. Is that live-learn experience of, even during a 20-minute eye test, you get to know a bit about the person. There's a bit of small talk before the test. They could come to you and say, I'm having a great time, I'm off to Dubai next week, for example.
Yeah.
That can't be learnt and translated into a human conversation by AI, at least not yet.
Yeah.
And it's, if you have to deliver, I say bad news, potentially bad news, or I think we need to investigate this a little bit further, I found something which I'm not particularly happy with and I want us to kind of explore it further. How that message is delivered, the words which are used in that message, the body language used in the delivery of that message is so important to the individual. The other side of it, if everything's fine, again, it's almost the reverse. It's the words which you use, everything's great, your eyesight's fantastic, the glasses you're wearing are brilliant, and can I say they really suit you as well? It's that kind of thing. which
Yeah.
AI is never going to be. AI can absolutely support in that role. AI is fantastic for the advancements in vision care. If we look at the Ray-Ban Metas, for example, glasses which are doing great things with recording devices and earphones and things like that,
Yeah.
that's amazing. But it's the human element behind that, which I'm really interested in, and I hope is always going to be at the forefront of vision care delivery.
Yeah, perfect. And I'd say the last two questions then would be, how are you and EyeMed using AI at the moment? And what do you think will be the future of AI in your industry? I know we've spoken about it a little bit there, but if you could just sort of give us some sort of insight.
Yeah, definitely. So how we're using it at the moment is, we, as a company specific, it's not something which we're using every single day in our kind of communications with our clients for the reasons we've just mentioned. We build rapport with our clients.
Yeah.
We know our clients. We want to become a trusted partner of our clients. Now we can use AI in terms of helping with the reporting side of things we do. And that's fine. That's kind of how we do it. But again, it's that human delivery, which I hope is never going to be replaced. And it's that old saying, PJ, which you and I are both aware of, people buy from people.
Yep.
And our business success up until this point and going forward for years and decades to come is about the rapport, the relationship, and the trust we have with our clients. And again, that's not necessarily easily replicated via AI. Machine learning, things like that, absolutely we can use, but let's keep that human element. In terms of where I see it going in the market, I think, again, we've spoken about it. I see continuous improvement in terms of how AI is used in terms of assessments, in terms of claims, in terms of making the whole process of the specific reports which have been generated easier to understand and quicker. So I see it absolutely aiding in that. In terms of the physical advancements, there's going to be glasses which can, as we've seen already, record. They can play music. They can essentially be a phone which helps you see as well. So I think that we're going to keep seeing those kind of advancements, which is fantastic. I hope that it stays, at least for the time being, as very much as a supportive role to the human element of an eye test, because it is a personal thing. You have got someone who, for all intents and purposes, is a stranger who's standing this far away from you and looking into your eyes.
Yeah.
And let's keep that, because it's that ongoing, that wider piece of an eye test which is important. AI can absolutely help. I hope it doesn't replace the human element.
Yeah. So consider it as, I'd say, when we first invented fire, the tool for that, the wheel, and now it's just another tool moving forward to use to help our lives easier, and hopefully, in a strange way, improve our human side as well, because we'll be engaging with each other a lot more rather than engaging with data and spreadsheets and all the other stuff that we do nowadays.
Exactly that.
So there you have it, listeners and watchers, the 6th episode of The Hive of Season 1. I hope you found it fascinating and inspiring. If you did, please do subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching. Thanks again for joining me, Ben. It was really great having you on the podcast. Some real great insight there.
Thank you. Loved it.
Any final thoughts before we go?
My final thoughts is something which I say every single day to whoever will listen to me is, please go and get your eyes tested. It's not just about whether or not you need glasses or whether the glasses you wear are still helping you. It's about a much wider health picture.
Prevention's better than the cure.
Definitely is. Thank you so much, PJ. Loved it.
Yeah, you too, Ben. Thanks very much. And thanks everyone else for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode.